Good morning and welcome to the Hedge Hoops betting stream hosted by the Competitive Hedge podcast. I am your host, Kenneth, and I'm joined by my co-host here today. He is the president of the Off the Ball Network, as well as the host of the Off the Ball podcast and many other projects that he's got going. Chris LeBron, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Glad to be with you on this early morning.
You say that it's an early morning, but you're at least on the East Coast. We're talking like 10 a.m. for you, so it's not too bad.
It was a late night.
We shouldn't feel too bad in that regard, although if it was a West Coast, might be a little bit different. But the whole point of this betting stream is to highlight some of the best basketball minds in the Twitter space, but we also want to chat about some sports as we go through it as well. So we're going to talk about some of the more disappointing and surprising teams in college basketball, chat a little bit about the betting slate, and then we're going to bring on some great bettors as well for the stream. So let's start out with who's the most disappointing team in college basketball for you this year? We're sort of getting into that conference play. We're starting to get a better idea of what teams are, who they are. So who's been your biggest disappointment this year?
Oh, my biggest disappointment easily for me is Creighton. Creighton was the team that I was really high on, as high as going to the Final Four. Like, their starting lineup to me was one of the best, if not the best starting lineup in college basketball. And they showed it early too. Like, they won, obviously a lot of, early season is a lot of fluff, but they still, I think they started off like 6-0 and had some good wins. They beat Arkansas in the Maui, had a good win when Texas Tech was good and all that. So they had some wins. Then they had a bad stretch where they lost like 6, 7, 8 in a row, something like that. But all like close games for the most part. 3-point loss here, 2-point loss here to some good teams. And I'm like, all right, losing streak sucks, but they're still, they're not getting killed in these games. And then another win streak, and I'm like, okay, they're back. And then another losing streak. It's just been a very up and down season for Creighton and all that. And it's been disappointing so far. And I think they're 3-2 in so far in Big East play, but just a lot of close losses this year, and just the backcourt sometimes very inconsistent. Kalkbrenner, the big man, has been in and out. Nemhart sometimes looks like a star and then fades away. Same thing with like Arthur Kaluma, who I was very high on, draft wise too. His outside shooting hasn't really come along the way I thought it would, but I still think they can do some things, once we get, a little deeper into Big East play, but definitely my biggest disappointment so far.
I thought about Creighton. That was one of the ones that I had written down. I almost wanted to put North Carolina as well, but I felt like they were overinflated at the start of the year, because of what they did last year. And I thought, well, I mean, that was still a pretty subpar ACC team that they had the year prior. So I just thought that the market maybe overvalued them a bit. The one for me has to be Villanova, and things have not been good since Jay Wright has left. I mean, they were a preseason top 15 team in the country. But to lose outright to Butler yesterday, now they're 8-10 on the season. They've got losses to DePaul, Portland, Temple, and unless they essentially win out or, maybe have a loss or two along the way, like, we're talking about this team not being in the NCAA tournament, which is pretty crazy to think. But there always seems to be that team every year that they're preseason top 25 and then they just completely flame out. So it's not a very deep group that they have at Villanova either. They kind of just have their top 4 guys. And then once you get into the bench, it's pretty sketchy. I'm just starting to question the coaching fit Obviously, you're going to do that when they struggle as much as they have. But Villanova, for me, we're keeping it in the Big East apparently, with our two biggest disappointments, because they were also, I mean, preseason 1-2 as far as who was going to win the Big East, and that's why, like, most surprising for me has to be UConn, because they were a mid top 25 team to start the year, and I've just been pleasantly surprised with what they've done. They preseason had the third best odds to win the Big East. It looks like they're currently sitting fourth because they've had a couple conference losses here, but I think they're going to make those up. And I knew losing Dan Hurley would be tough for them, but with all the transfers, I wasn't sure how this was going to look for this team. Adam Sanogo, I mean, he's been unreal. He's 17-6, shooting nearly 60% from the field, and they're a pretty deep team. What have you thought of UConn this year?
Dama Sanogo is someone that I really loved going into last year. You know, big man and all that, and he's really taken that next step forward. But yeah, UConn is they've been very. I didn't think they'd be this good. They've kind of stumbled a little bit. You know, a couple that had back-to-back losses and all that, but Sonogo has been really good for them. So yeah, this was a really big year for them. Hurley really needed to get these guys going, and it seems like they're hopefully they don't falter because of his coaching, because sometimes he has some suspect coaching. Late. He had a big tech. A couple games ago. Forgot who they played. I think it was their first loss. I think it was when they played Xavier. That kind of cost them. But UConn's definitely been better than expected this year for sure.
Well, and as I said, like the transfers that they brought in, like Tristan Newton's been good for them.
Yeah.
Joey Calcaterra, he's been awesome as well. So adding some of that much needed depth, I think, has gone a long way in UConn being one of those teams. Who's been the biggest surprise for you this year?
A surprise for me is Rutgers. And I've liked this program for a while. It feels like they've definitely, gotten this program back to not back, but in relevancy, and especially in the tri-state area. But I thought they would take a little bit of a dip. When they lost Ron Harper last year, who was their go-to guy, their lead scorer. I mean, he had some big shots. Had the game winner last year versus Iowa. Not Iowa, versus Purdue. And they bounced back, and they're one of the best defensive teams in the country this year. I still worry some about their offense, but I think that'll come around. And the defense is really good. I mean, they had one ugly game this year, or they lost to Seton Hall 45-43. It was a tough watch, but they came back this year, and they have some good wins with Maryland. I mean, and they beat Purdue again. They came back and beat Purdue again this year. Purdue, I think, is the number 2 team in the country. So it's been really good, and I think this is a team that I'm buying future stock into. Next few years, I mean, they got some guys potentially coming in the class that could really get this team going forward. But this year, I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country, and they could suffocate you on that end. And they so far it's been really good to see Rutgers be relevant in basketball. And some of their losses, I mean, they lost to Miami early in this year. It was a tough loss by a few points. Ohio State, they lost by a point. But I think this team, I think they're gonna hopefully they figure it out offensively, because they're kind of rough offensively. They're a really poor 3-point shooting, and that kind of worries me a bit. But overall, I just think I didn't expect them to be this good and competing and being Purdue again. So I'm gonna go Rutgers.
Yeah, I think if Rutgers is in the tournament this year, we're going to see low 60s games between them. And I think betting wise, you've seen it a lot. A lot of their numbers are kind of hovering around like 125, which is on like the very low side of college basketball betting. But it's justified because that's a really good defense that they have. They got windows over Indiana, Purdue, like you already talked about. So this is a team that I like as well. ACC wise, I like Miami as well. That was another one that I kind of highlighted because preseason they were plus 1,400 to win the ACC, and right now that's looking pretty good because you've got Duke struggling, North Carolina struggling, Virginia. The question mark is always around their offense and whether or not they can produce enough points. They're solid defensively once again, but they've got Isaiah Wong playing at a high level, Jordan Miller,
Nigel Pack. The trans like they got I wouldn't say they wouldn't be a surprise to me because I actually thought they would be really good this year. Like I like Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong is one of the best scorers in the country. So they have one of the most dynamic backcourts in there. The thing that maybe worry about me for them is their size. They don't have any. They don't really have a lot of size, but overall, I mean, I like them a lot in the ACC. I think I had them like second, second or third, in the ACC. I just really
And
like
I
this
thought
team.
that they would still be a good ACC team, but to have them start 14-2 is what's surprising to me. And I know a lot of that. You'll look at the schedule and say that there's
Yeah.
not a lot in there, but they have quality wins. NC State, Virginia, they beat Rutgers, like beat Maryland or just lost to Maryland. Like that's solid non-conference play that they put together, and I'm overall happy with how Miami's played. Is there any other teams that were a surprise for you?
What other team did I have? Oh, Missouri. Missouri has been surprising too. Me and Kev talked about on the Get a Bucket podcast about them, and that they can, you know, not that they would be this good, but they would surprise some people, and they definitely have. I mean, now a lot of their schedule is fluff. A lot of if you just look at their schedule, you're like, what school is that? I've never heard of that school, but you still got to give them credit. They might come back down to earth in SEC play. They got thumped by Texas A&M, and but overall, I mean, Dennis Gates has that team playing really good basketball overall, and they could score too. So it's a team that doesn't play much defense but can score. It's kind of fun and scary at the same time. But they definitely have surprised some people out. In the SEC, but they can shoot the three. They can shoot the three, and if you get the tournament time, if you could shoot the three, you could beat anyone. We could beat anyone. So Missouri's definitely been surprising so far.
Okay, so let's head over now. Let's look at some of the ranked games that are happening today. We're going to look at the game slate as far as who's in action today. So you got three ranked teams in the ACC playing today. You got Miami, who we were just talking about, their slight road dogs at +3.5. You got Virginia -9.5 on the road against Florida State today. And then Duke essentially in a pick 'em with Clemson today. Clemson slight edging them out at -1.5. Any of these games that you really like from a betting perspective today?
I'm gonna ride with Miami. NC State, uh, they are a good team. Tre'Quavion Smith and they did a number a few days ago to our Dukies, but and they beat a good Virginia Tech team too. So, but I don't know. It's just the feeling. I don't even. It's not even so much like analytics or all that. It's just a feeling with Miami. They like I said, I really love the backcourt of Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong, and I think that 3.5 number. I like that. I like that. To cover. So that's the one I'm looking at a lot.
Yeah, the one for me that I'm kind of eyeing up, I kind of like the over in that Duke Clemson game. It's 141.5. A lot of overs recently head to head between these two as well. So I think that we're going to see a mid 70s for both sides today in that Duke Clemson game. So that's one that I'm looking at. There's only one Big Ten game today. That's number 18 Wisconsin versus Indiana. But then again, there's not a lot of Big Ten ranked teams right now.
No.
They're all kind of just beating each other. But I kind of like Indiana at the -3.5, but it's not something that I'm going to bet today. Well, where are you going with this one, or are you fading it altogether?
I gotta fade Indiana. The team I like coming in. Like, I didn't like the Big Ten coming into the season. And Indiana was the one team where I was like, okay, if there's a team in the Big Ten that I think has upside, it's Indiana because they do have a lot of good talent. Um, Chase Jackson coming back and all that, but I'm fading them, man. I mean, three losses in a row. Uh, close games, the first two losses, but Penn State kind of and Penn. That's another team that I should have mentioned and surprising is Penn State. Penn State. We don't really when you think Penn State, you're not thinking about basketball. And Penn State, they don't have a lot of tournament appearances, but Penn State's another surprising team. But I don't know. I'm gonna fade Indiana. I can't trust them right now. I can't trust them right now. So yeah, I would fade Indiana. I just don't trust them at all.
Okay, so let's chat Big 12. We got number 11 Kansas taking on TCU. TCU -3.5. Iowa State and Kansas today. Kansas is -7.5. And then you've got Texas Tech versus number 10 Texas, who are -8.5. I find that the Big 12 has been the toughest for me to bet this year because there's been so many road upsets or road teams that have covered that I don't know which one to pick. They either cover or they get blown out completely.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this much. I think my favorite play of the day is the over in that Kansas and Iowa State game. You got Iowa State, who's won 6 in a row. Kansas won 9 in a row. And Kansas has gone over in 6 of their 9 home games as well. So with two teams averaging almost 150 points per game, I think that's my favorite play today is to play the over. I got it at 133.5. It's 134.5 right now. Any of these games that you like?
K-State +4. I think that's my lock.
Ooh.
Because TCU plays a close game every game. Every game is a thriller, and that TCU is another team that I had in the Final Four too. But every game seems like it is a close game. It is a close game. Either they're down 20 and they come back, or it's just a battle throughout the whole. So I mean, and Kansas State is another team that I should have mentioned, and surprising too because they've been definitely surprising so far. Tremendous season, Keontae. Coming back from the the scare he had a few years back is a remarkable story. Keontae Johnson coming back, is a remarkable story, and they're good, and he's been really good too, which is really good to see. But so +4 Kansas State. I love Mike Miles. Mike Miles is maybe my favorite college basketball player that doesn't play for Duke. Maybe just my favorite college basketball player, period, because he's just so much fun to watch and super talented. But TCU plays a close game every game. Everything feels like it's close. So K-State +4, I think that might be my lock.
Okay. Big East and Pac-12, we're just lumping both these in together because you only got the one ranked Big East game. That's number 19 Providence versus Creighton. Creighton's 6.5-point favorites at home. I've seen a lot of people on Providence this morning on that +6.5. Then you got number 9 Arizona, who's -4.5 on the road against Oregon, and Colorado versus number 7 UCLA -11.5. I'll be honest, I'm fading all three of these games, mostly because so many people are on Providence, and I think Vegas might know something with this -6.5. So that's what worries me. But I don't like it enough to go and bet it either. So any of these three teams intrigue you?
Creighton realistically should win by like 10. Like Providence is solid, but Creighton is a better team. Like they have the better players and all that. Like I said, this is a national championship level lineup, and obviously they're not playing up to that standard. They're 9-8, So and not wouldn't even be a tournament team right now. But like, why is it at, like, I'm reading on a book it's 6.5? Like, why? Why is it 6.5? Like Providence is the number 19 team in the country playing against a 9-8 team. What do they know that we don't know? But I would stay away from that. I would, because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take that 6.5 from Providence. That's easy. But
like, I know that there's no Green or Christophilus today for them, but still, like 6.5. Like we still don't know if Bynum's going to go because he's a game time decision, and I haven't seen anything around his injury status. So it does seem like a lot of points. If he gets ruled out, you might even see that line drop a point or two as well. So that's kind of where I'm at there. Now, a lot of SEC ranked schools right now. You've got Kentucky, who are +11.5 on the road against Tennessee today. Arkansas -4.5 versus Vandy. Missouri and Florida. Florida's -4.5. LSU and Bama. Bama's -14.5. And then you've got Mississippi State and number 21 Auburn at -7.5. I know that we already have someone who submitted a play that's on Kentucky today, but he's also one of the bigger Kentucky homers that I know. So Kentucky hasn't been great recently. Any of these games that you like today?
This one's tough. Kentucky is struggling big time. They have the talent. I mean, 11.5 is a big number, even for a good Tennessee team. But that one, I don't know. Missouri 5.5. I mean, I could see why that number's big, for some people, because Missouri, like I said, they don't really have a lot of good wins, even though they've played relatively well. Their only good win is Kentucky, but I mean, they beat Illinois too, but Illinois is kind of fading hard. They have a lot of things, a lot of issues going on with that program. But I don't know if I had to play, you know, that Florida Missouri over. Maybe I would go with Florida Missouri because Missouri, like I said, they can score in bunches. So maybe that over. I think it's what I'm seeing 149, around that. So yeah, maybe I'll go with that.
The LSU one I wanted to take, but they got three guys that are game time decisions. They got Wilkinson, Hayes, and Williams that are all game time decisions. And if those guys get ruled out, then you're kind of left just hoping that they cling on to that spread. So, given where the number's at, I have a feeling that they feel like at least a couple of them aren't going today. So, I would probably I want to play LSU,
I
but
mean, Bama has been on. I mean, they've been whooping teams too. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they whooped
that's the other concern.
Arkansas by 15, Kentucky by 15, I think, and they beat Ole Miss by 20. Like, so they've been whooping teams. They're on a roll right now. So, and even if that number might not be as crazy as people think.
No. And then the last one would be there's three other ranked games happening. You got number 22 Charleston. They're minus 19.5 against Elon. Elon only has 2 wins on the entire season. So
didn't Elon buy Twitter? That's a win. That's a good win this year. That's a good win.
New Mexico versus San Diego State. San Diego State's minus 7.5, and then you got Portland and Gonzaga. Gonzaga's minus 18.5. I bet the Gonzaga spread the other night with BYU, and that one lost because it was a 1-point game. And Gonzaga, let's be honest, they probably should have lost that game outright, but they were able to get out that win. And so I like Charleston today. I know that it's 19.5 points, but when you're taking on a 2-win team at home, I mean, I just feel like they're going to win by 30 today.
Charleston's been good this year. They've been good this year.
Feel. Do you like any of those?
There's one I don't have that you don't have there. That's it's not a ranked, but I don't know why. I like this a lot. This number. It's South Carolina and Texas A&M at +8. South Carolina got my favorite prospect, Gigi Jackson, and +8. I really like that. They just beat Kentucky. They're feeling good. They're at home. I like it. I like that +8. I know it's not a ranked game. I know it's
a lot of points for A&M. I know that A&M's been pretty solid. They're 11-5, but that still feels like a lot of road points in the SEC.
It's a lot of road points, and like I said, South Carolina's had a really good road win against Kentucky. I know Kentucky's struggling, but it's South Carolina. Like, we're not, this is not a powerhouse and all that, but it's just a feeling. Gigi Jackson's going to come out. They're at home. So an 8 is too much for Texas A&M. So +8 for South Carolina. I really like that a lot.
Okay. So with that, we've gone through all of the ranked games that are happening. We've obviously got a ton of unranked games as well. That's called Basketball Saturday for you. I can't wait for the next 2 months of Saturdays of college basketball. But we're going to head over now. We're going to get to our guest picks because we have a few guests in the waiting room right now that I want to get to. And so I'm going to start with friend at the Off the Ball Network, the sportsman. That's Rob. Rob, how's it going, man? What's your favorite play for today?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Looking at today's slate, there's a number of games that stood out, but this one I really liked a lot. That's Florida Atlantic at 15-1, taking on North Texas 14-3. Right now, the line is at -3.5, which is exactly where I got it last night. What I like about Florida Atlantic, their true home advantage is a little over 3 points. So you're already looking at, they have a nice advantage being a home game. I also like to look at the 4 factors of advanced statistics when you're looking at effective field goal percentage, turnovers, free throws, and they have a nice advantage there as well. And then you look at FAU -3.5 at home. Well, number one, they're 6-1-1 as the home favorite. Usually their margin of victory is right around 17. And against the spread, their average at home is +8.4. So I like all of that. They also shoot well from 3 at 38%. Looking at North Texas, they've only played 1 game so far this year where they were the away underdog, but their own 1, they lost by 30, and they were -20.5 against the spread. So again, I really, really like Florida Atlantic in this spot, -3.5.
I like the spot. When you sent it to me, it was one that I was looking at this morning as well. I mean, they do have a massive advantage in points per game as well. They match up pretty even defensively as well. I think it's a really good spot for them today. So I really like the play. Chris, any thoughts on that one? Or are these two teams that you're not too familiar with from a college basketball perspective?
No, FAU is definitely playing good basketball. They definitely been good. So I'm right. There was a lot of numbers there. So and it's still early, and I didn't have coffee yet. So it messed up my brain a little bit. But I'll definitely gonna look into that more. But yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one, Rob. I'm gonna look into that one.
Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's 2 p.m. Eastern time for that tip, so you still got a little bit of time to get some coffee in you, Chris, before you go and make your wagers. So, Rob, appreciate you hopping on. Go follow him on Twitter @thesportsman. Really appreciate it, bud. Oh, geez, I cut him off a little bit too early. That's my bad. Okay, so I do like that Florida Atlantic play. It was one that when he sent it to me today, I really do like the value on that one. They are number one in Conference USA right now as well. One guy, I'll mention it now because he can't hop on the stream this morning. We had a few people that weren't able to, and we were kind of a late notice on getting this out. But Kentucky, Walker Bailey got Kentucky plus 12.5. So he was able to get a full point better yesterday. He likes that one against Tennessee today. I couldn't lay those points. I know he's a big Kentucky guy, and I think that he's thinking that they're going to keep it close because it's a rivalry game and maybe this is a get right spot for them. But it wasn't one that I could bet personally, but I understand his thought process on it. So let's head over now. Let's bring on our next guest. One of my favorite guys in the Twitter space. He puts out a ton of great content, a lot of funny content as well. That is Dakuchi Bets. How's it going, buddy?
What's going on, boys? Good morning. Nice to see you so bright and early. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, man. What do you got for us today?
I'm going to give you guys two picks if that's okay with you. I'm going with one favorite and one underdog first. Hate to go against the host of the shows, but I'm on the Horned Frogs today, fellas. My concern for K-State is there's outside the top 300 in terms of bench minutes. The longer that this conference season goes on, they're playing hard games out there in the Big 12 night after night. And I just think against a TCU team who they're going to make you fight for every inch of the floor. They're going to crash the offensive glass. They're a top 25 in terms of offensive rebounding rate right now. I just think that lack of depth, they only play really 8 guys, the serious minutes at K-State. They're outside the top 300 in terms of bench minutes. I think that gives them a real problem. And also, I think this is a nice little buy low spot on TCU. They've had 2 tough losses, 2 close losses, 2 against 2 really solid teams. I'm very high on the Cyclones relative to other people, so I don't even really consider that a bad loss at all. And I just think K-State, we've seen the high water mark for this team. The longer the season goes on, the more that wear and tear brings up. This is a tough road spot in my estimation. TCU has a pretty electric fan base. They'll be rocking this afternoon. So I like the Horned Frogs laying the 3.5. It's going to be a close game. I don't hate using it as a parlay piece, maybe with another team you're concerned about maybe not covering the spread. But I'm going to lay the 3.5. I'm going to hope they can make their foul shots down the stretch and cover this number. And then my other one, we're going to go to we're going to stay in the same conference. Actually, we're going to go with West Virginia against Vanderbilt. I like West Virginia to cover the 3. Sorry, that's not the game. Vanderbilt's playing Arkansas. West Virginia's playing Oklahoma. My fault. Yeah, I still like West Virginia, though. I just got those teams mixed up. I like Arkansas in that matchup, too, but I'm not going to talk too deeply about that one. The reason I like West Virginia, first and foremost, is that their presses are obviously going to be something that the other team has to deal with. The Sooners, they've actually been okay against the press, but they're turning the ball over a boatload in the half court, and that gives me a major concern for them because West Virginia, they eat in transition. This is what Bobby Huggins likes to do. And moreover, my other concern for the Sooners is against West Virginia, it's incredibly important to get in the bonus. When they're not in the bonus, their defense in the press is absolutely swarming. They really ramp up the intensity and the pressure. And the Sooners in the half court just don't do a very good job of drawing fouls. They're outside the top 250 in terms of foul shots created so far this season. So if Huggy can stay outside the bonus, I'm always going to back Virginia to kind of get it done in those situations. My power ratings have them as the better team regardless. So if you take away the home court, which I don't really value that high down there, I don't really think they have a great atmosphere most times. So give me West Virginia. I'm going to take the field goal. I'm a little bit tempted to go on the money line, but I'm gonna use a little bit of my conservative nature and just take the points and hope that West Virginia can get it done for me today.
I really like the West Virginia play as well. I'm not as high on Oklahoma either. I know that they had that tight game with Kansas, and I think that's kind of the market thinking that they're a lot better than they are. And I think it's maybe just Kansas could have been better that night. I know that they put up 79 points, but Kansas, I mean, they're an absolute wagon. So I really like the West Virginia play for sure. Chris, obviously he's going against TCU. So what do you think of West Virginia? They got Oklahoma.
No. I like that play a lot. I like that. I mean, they're struggling a little bit. They lost 3-4 in a row and all that.
Yeah,
so
four on the bounce. It's not been a good run for Huggy and the boys, but I like a desperate road team a little bit here too. You go on the road, you get on the bus with the boys, you lock arms, you travel down there, and you get fucking fired up to get a big game going.
Yeah, and they had a close loss against Baylor. So you could just if you just that gut feeling. I like them too, and I think they're better than what they've shown the last 4 games too. Like I thought they would be. I know they were in the bottom of the Big 12 for a lot of people, but they were a team preseason. I was like, they're gonna be. You got to trust the Huggins team. You just it's like there's just certain coaches you just like. I'm just Izzo. Like you just like people like I don't know about Michigan State. But I was like, yeah, but they got Coach Izzo. You just trust the coach, and I trust Huggins too. So they're reeling a little bit, but I could see them definitely bouncing back. For sure.
Yeah, I agree with you on that coaching sentiment. I think in college hoops and in college football to a lesser extent, but also a big extent too, the coaching discrepancy you can see between some of these teams. It's pretty clear that some of these guys are, whether they're kind of just collecting their paycheck, whether they're maybe not the best or most intense mind. Like Huggy he's going to bring the most out of his guys almost every year. Last year, kind of a down year relatively what their expectations were. So even more so, I'm sure he's going to have his boys fired up for this game. They're going to be getting after it in the press. And I guess if we got time, I'll talk about the Razorbacks game. I kind of teased that by giving you the Vanderbilt side when it was Oklahoma, but I like the Razorbacks to get it done against Vandy. Kind of, we're going to go on the same line of thinking of here for most of my games. Buy low spot, sell high spot on the other team. Vandy had a great performance against Tennessee, leading in the first half. But if you watch that second half, the minute Tennessee ramped up the defensive intensity, it was just too much for Vandy. They couldn't really hold on to the lead that they had. I think the second half started with a 24-6 run for Tennessee. So when you play an Arkansas team who has the 11th best defensive efficiency in the nation, it's going to be hard to score. And honestly, Musselman got out coached the other night against Nate Oates in Alabama. They couldn't score. They couldn't figure out what they were doing as the high pick and roll. And I just don't see that same level of coaching discrepancy like we were talking about a couple seconds ago. Musselman's a guy some people don't necessarily love what they do in terms of shot selection and three-point shooting, but he gets the most out of his guys. He runs good sets on offense. Can't necessarily tell them not to shoot the rock if they want to shoot it. I understand it's kind of it's a catch-22. You want guys to take open shots, but when you're shooting under 30%, maybe look to pound the ball or rock inside a little bit. I think they should be able to do that against Vanderbilt today, more so than they did in the past couple games where they've taken some kind of bad losses. So give me their Hogs on a little bounce back spot here, lay the 3.5. Like I said, again, this is a road spot where the home team not really getting a great home court advantage. Vanderbilt kind of historically, if you look at some people's numbers, they're at usually a 1.5 type of grade up when they're on the home court. I made this a pick 'em on a neutral. So I made this Arkansas -6 on a neutral. So I like Arkansas at -3.5. I like to play it up to 5. This is probably my favorite in terms of the line, in terms of like if you're not going to play money line. This is if you're going to lay the points. I think Arkansas covers pretty easily here against Vanderbilt today.
I like it as well. I'm not high on Vandy at all. Vandy 500 team right now, 2-game losing streak. I know Arkansas has lost 2 in a row as well, but as you said, I think they're just playing better opponents at that point.
So Arkansas worries me. They worry me because ever since they lost Nick Smith and Trayvon Brazile, this team they already were like a poor 3-point shooting team. They're really not a good 3-point shooting team at all. They're like in the bottom of the barrel. But you bought on Nick Smith as being a creator, an offensive creator downhill and all that. And Trayvon was, especially if you saw him in the Maui, like he was hitting shots from the perimeter, and that was along with that freaky athletic. But he went down. Nick Smith went down. And Anthony Black hasn't looked, his shooting hasn't really been there.
Not impressed.
He's not. He hasn't impressed with his shooting because that's kind of his swing thing. Like we know he can pass, and he kind of has like that Josh Giddey type, but it's the shooting that worries. But so in the last 2 games they really struggled, but they should bounce back. I mean, they're better than Vanderbilt, like clearly. Vanderbilt's been a lot better than expected. But Arkansas worries me. They worry me because they can't shoot. They just can't shoot. And I mentioned before, like you can't shoot, you get to tourney time. You can get bounced in the first round easily.
No, yeah, I definitely wholeheartedly agree with you there. I'm not a big fan of Arkansas come March, but I just think even when you look at Vanderbilt's offensive profile, they're shooting a little bit higher than kind of their shot quality would suggest from the outside. And although obviously threes are more than twos, I just think Arkansas gets more twos tonight than Vanderbilt can put up 3-point shots. So I'm gonna take off, fellas. Thanks for having me on. If you've not done so already, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Dakuchi Bets, and let's have a big day, man. 200 plus games, lots of money to be made, hopefully anyways. I have been on a bit of a cold streak, but we broke that last night. We got into the green for the first time in 3 days. So now it's just about building momentum and getting going in the right direction, doing the Dante Culpepper into Sunday, baby. Skol Vikings all day.
Let's go, buddy. All right. Thanks for hopping on. I love his energy. He's such a fun guy in the betting space. I also had one that was submitted in Opium Investment. Shout out to him. He gave us Celtics -6.5 today versus Charlotte on the NBA side of things. I like that spot. I mean, it's Charlotte Hornets, so I'm not putting too much weight in them to cover any sort of spread. He bought the point just to be safe on that front, but that's another one that I like that we had submitted in. And then we got one more guy in the queue as well that I want to bring on. Let's bring on Part-Time Picks. How's it going, buddy? What have you got for us here today?
I'm not drinking coffee in the morning, but what I am drinking is some what we're talking about, kissing the badge. We got City winning. We're drinking. We're having a good time. All right. So people who don't know me, I'm Part-Time Picks. I don't cap a lot of American basketball, but I cap stuff all over the world. You've seen me. I bet the weirdest leagues in the world, and I got the stats to back them up. Let me go ahead and put my beer down real quick. So we are going to be heading to España today. Should be a fun time. We're going to be heading to the main division, and we have Tenerife. Tenerife minus. Let me get my exact play pulled up here. I haven't ever been on a pod. So I used to host a show, but this is awesome. This is great, guys. So thanks for having me on. Let me get my play pulled up here. So Tenerife minus 5.5 at -120. You can find the Spanish league on most books, DraftKings. You can find them on Bovada if it's like an offshore. So the lines are a lot less sharp for international basketball, and stats really do mean something in this league because of how team oriented it is compared to the NBA. You guys both following me? We good to go?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little nerdy here real quick. So Tenerife, despite being on a slid in these last few games, they're still one of the best performing teams in Spain. They're averaging a 116.8 offensive rating, and then they're also having a 103. They actually play the second, or they're actually tied for the first best defense in the league. And I don't really understand this line at all. I don't see any injuries. I can't tell you how many websites I have to go through and use Google Translator to get injury reports. It's a nightmare. But that being said, they're playing against Basket Zaragoza. Basket Zaragoza is 4-11 this year. I believe they were a newly pro-made. There's like different league systems. So like you can get – it's like if the G League could go play against the Indiana Pacers, you can get promoted. And there's my buddy actually in my hometown right next to me plays for a Euro League team called Olympiakos. They're the best team in Greece. But there's really all the – yeah. Yeah, so Alec Peters is his name. He played for what team? He played for I'm going to butcher it. Valparaiso. It's
Valparaiso. Yeah.
Yeah, so he played there.
Nice.
But yeah, I really like this spot here. Like I said, this line doesn't really make sense to me. No injury reports that I can see, and they play well on the road. That's the only scary thing. A home court advantage in Europe is huge. Like if you watch a game in Serbia, they got flares in there, and they got flags and tifos and throwing stuff on the court. They get wild. Where Zaragoza is literally 2-5 at home. So, like I said, more than happy anyone ever to reach out to me. Any questions you two got for me? Or
Alex P, that sounds so familiar. That name, I sound so familiar. Like,
And
did
Chris
he,
hosts a college
did he,
basketball podcast.
I feel like I've seen him like in a summer league or something. Like,
yeah, he played for the Suns for 1 year.
Oh, okay. Because
So-
the name, it sounds really familiar. And Valparaiso, yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm trying
Valparaiso, he's a naturalized Bosnian professional basketball player that literally comes back every summer to his hometown that's 5 minutes away from me and puts on basketball camps for all the kids.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, as much as I don't know a lot about the Spanish league, it's definitely one. I'll tail it today. I'm going to tail it today with you. Let's have a winner here. -5.5 on Tenerife at -120. Really appreciate you hopping on. Go follow him on Twitter. Is it at Part-Time Picks?
Yeah, it's at part-time, kind of with that name there. I don't know how I came up with the name, probably because the full-time job, part-time picks. I don't know, but anyways, awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm here sharing a little bit of my knowledge, and both of you have a fantastic weekend.
Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Yep. Take care, bro.
That's awesome. I'm glad that we got an international pick in there. I need to start getting into the CBL up here because we got the Canadian Basketball League that's kind of started up that I need to maybe start capping that as well. Get in tune with that league. So with that, we've got all of our guest picks for the day. Chris, I think the last thing that we do is we cook up a little 3 or 4 team parlay here for the show. So I think we have to include both of our plays. Obviously, we host. So I'll take the Iowa State and Kansas over. You've got the Miami +3.5 versus NC State. I like Florida Atlantic. I like the play that Rob threw in there. The -3.5 versus North Texas. Now we need a fourth. So do we feel good with West Virginia? TCU, obviously you're on the other side of that game, so that may be one that we leave out just because you differ on that one. But he had West Virginia, he had Arkansas. It sounded like you didn't trust Arkansas that much. We could mix in that NBA play that we got, or even that international play if we want. But what are your thoughts? What's the legs that we're thinking here? We obviously have our 2, but we need 2 more.
Oh man, that's tough.
Do you like Florida Atlantic?
I do. Because if they win that game, they probably could get ranked too. So that's a big game for them. They only got 1 loss. And what is it? What was that line? It was 2.5.
3.5.
3.5. 3.5 versus North Texas. North Texas solid, but FAU is better. Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with FAU.
Okay.
3.5.
We got Florida Atlantic -3.5. We've got your Miami +3.5. Now we need to figure out what our last one is. Do we trust Bob Huggins? Is that where we're going?
Trust Bobby Huggins on the road versus Oklahoma. There's a lot of ways to look at it because Oklahoma had a tough, close loss versus Kansas, but then West Virginia had a close loss against Baylor. But I can't see them losing 5 in a row. I can't see them losing 5 in a row.
Do we want to just take the points with West Virginia?
But
3.5?
I take the 3.5. Yeah, I do like that.
Okay, so I think that's what we have then for it. Let me write it down here. West Virginia +3.5. Okay, so that means that the 4-team parlay that we have for today. First of all, go and check out all the guys who did submit picks today. OPM Investments couldn't hop on. Walker Bailey 818 couldn't hop on. But we got Tenerife -5.5 from Part-Time Picks. We got Takuchi with TCU -3.5, West Virginia +3.5, and Arkansas -4.5. And then OPM investments as well with the Boston -6.5 versus Charlotte at -132. But the parlay today is Iowa State and Kansas over, Florida Atlantic spread, Miami spread, and West Virginia spread. We'll get those odds out to you right away here. We got about an hour and a bit until tip-off. But go and check out Off the Ball Network, Blue Collar Media Group, the two sponsors for this stream. We're going to be doing it every Saturday. Next week, we'll probably push it to 11 Eastern time, so that way we're a little bit closer to tip-off with some of these games. But Chris, I appreciate you hopping on and co-hosting with me today for this Hedge Hoops betting stream. We have our NHL one coming up in a few hours' time as well. So if you want to go and bet some hockey as well, then definitely tune in. Chris, anything else you want to mention?
No, this was fun. Appreciate you having me on, joining me, and hopefully we win some people some money, and I win some money too because I need it.
Sounds good. All right, appreciate you all, and we'll see you guys next week for the Hedge Hoops betting